When a person begins to sense that they are losing someone important, the fear that arises is rarely about the present moment alone. It often reaches back into earlier experiences where connection felt uncertain or fragile. The mind does not always distinguish between past and present threats. Instead, it gathers emotional memories and blends them into the current situation. A delayed reply, a shift in tone, or a subtle distance can awaken an old insecurity that was never fully resolved. The reaction may seem disproportionate, yet internally it feels justified. The person is not only responding to what is happening now, but to what has happened before. This is why the fear of abandonment can appear sudden and intense. It touches a sensitive layer of identity that depends on connection for reassurance and stability. When someone feels they are losing you, they may struggle to separate reality from interpretation. Their thoughts may circle around questions of worth, value, and belonging. In this state, the emotional system moves into alert mode, searching for signs, clues, and evidence. What might be neutral behavior can be interpreted as confirmation of rejection. The experience becomes less about the other person's actions and more about the individual's internal narrative. That narrative often whispers that loss is inevitable, that distance means disinterest, and that disinterest leads to isolation. These assumptions may not be consciously chosen, yet they guide behavior in subtle ways. As this fear deepens, it influences actions in ways that are not always intentional. Some individuals attempt to regain closeness through increased attention or sudden expressions of appreciation. Others withdraw, hoping to protect themselves from anticipated pain. Both responses arise from the same root, a desire to secure emotional safety. The difficulty is that fear often distorts communication. Instead of openly expressing vulnerability, a person may become defensive or overly cautious. The internal dialogue might say, "If I show how much I care, I risk being hurt." Or, "If I pull away first, I will not feel the full impact of rejection." These strategies are protective, yet they can create the very distance the person fears. What is most significant is that this reaction is not a sign of weakness, but of attachment. It reveals how deeply the connection matters. When someone feels they are losing you, they are confronting the possibility of emotional disconnection, and that possibility unsettles the foundation of their sense of security. Understanding this dynamic allows space for empathy. Beneath the unexpected behavior is not manipulation, but anxiety about losing something meaningful. When the fear of losing someone becomes intense, the hidden parts of the personality begin to surface. These are aspects that are usually kept out of sight, either because they seem undesirable or because they do not fit the image a person tries to maintain. Under normal circumstances, these traits remain restrained. Yet, the threat of separation weakens that restraint. A person who prides themselves on independence may suddenly act possessive. Someone who appears emotionally reserved may reveal unexpected sensitivity. These reactions are not carefully planned. They rise from deeper layers of the psyche that seek expression when stability feels endangered. The individual may even feel surprised by their own behavior, wondering why their responses seem stronger than the situation requires. What is happening is an encounter with the parts of themselves they have not fully acknowledged. The pressure of potential loss creates a crack in the surface, and through that crack, suppressed emotions and impulses emerge. This emergence can feel unsettling because it challenges the person's familiar self-image. If they have always seen themselves as calm, discovering jealousy or anxiety can create inner conflict. Rather than recognizing these feelings as natural responses to fear, they may attempt to deny or justify them. Yet denial rarely dissolves emotion. It only pushes it into indirect forms of expression. A sarcastic remark, an abrupt silence, or an exaggerated display of confidence can mask a deeper insecurity. The unexpected action that follows often reflects this tension. It may be a sudden declaration of commitment or a dramatic withdrawal meant to test the other's loyalty. To an outside observer, such behavior can seem inconsistent. Internally, however, it is an attempt to restore balance. The psyche seeks to protect itself from perceived harm, even if the chosen method is imperfect. There is also a deeper symbolic dimension to this reaction. When someone feels they are losing you, they are not only confronting the possibility of separation from another person, but also facing aspects of themselves that the relationship kept hidden. Certain connections allow individuals to avoid unresolved insecurities by providing reassurance. When that reassurance feels uncertain, those insecurities surface with greater clarity. The unexpected behavior is therefore more than a reaction to external change. It is an encounter with the self. The individual stands at a moment where they can either become more aware of these hidden tendencies or allow them to control their actions unconsciously. The situation becomes a psychological mirror. Through it, they see both their dependence and their unrecognized emotional depth. If approached with reflection rather than denial, this moment can lead to greater self-understanding and more balanced relationships in the future. When someone begins to fear they are losing you, they may unknowingly project their inner wounds onto you. Projection is a quiet psychological process in which a person attributes their own unresolved feelings to another. Instead of recognizing their insecurity as arising from within, they interpret it as something caused entirely by your behavior. A simple change in routine may be seen as intentional distancing. A moment of silence may be understood as rejection. In truth, the intensity of their reaction often reflects older emotional experiences that were never fully understood. The mind seeks coherence, and when it senses discomfort, it looks outward for explanation. It is easier to believe that the other person has changed than to confront the possibility of unhealed fear within oneself. This does not occur with conscious intention. It unfolds subtly, shaping perception before reason has the opportunity to intervene. The person may genuinely believe their interpretation is accurate because projection feels real. It colors the way they see you, transforming neutral actions into signs of withdrawal. As this pattern strengthens, communication becomes strained. They may question your loyalty or interpret your independence as indifference. What is actually happening is an internal conflict seeking expression. Their fear of abandonment is being placed onto you, as though you are the source of the instability they feel inside. This process can create confusion on both sides, especially if the projected fears are not gently examined. Projection intensifies when vulnerability feels threatening. To admit, "I am afraid of losing you," requires openness and humility. For many, that admission feels risky. It exposes a part of the self that longs for reassurance. Instead of expressing this directly, the mind constructs a narrative that preserves pride. It might say, "You are pulling away," rather than, "I am afraid." This subtle shift protects the ego but distorts reality. Over time, the projected fears can influence behavior in unexpected ways. The person may test your commitment, seeking proof that contradicts their internal doubts. They may become overly attentive or conversely distant, hoping to regain a sense of control. These actions are attempts to resolve inner tension without fully confronting it. The difficulty is that projection often prevents genuine understanding. It places responsibility for emotional pain entirely on the other, leaving little room for self-reflection. Yet, when a person recognizes this pattern, something changes. The awareness that their fear originates within allows for a more honest dialogue. Instead of reacting to imagined rejection, they can begin to explore the roots of their insecurity. In this recognition lies growth. the unexpected behavior that once seemed impulsive becomes an opportunity for insight, revealing not only the depth of their attachment, but also the parts of themselves that seek healing. When a person senses that they are losing you, an inner tension begins to form between the desire to control the situation and the need to surrender to what they cannot command. Control offers the illusion of safety. It promises that if one says the right words, behaves in the right way, or adjusts enough, the connection can be secured. In moments of emotional uncertainty, this impulse grows stronger. The individual may attempt to manage conversations carefully, monitor your reactions, or increase their efforts to maintain closeness. These actions are not always obvious. Sometimes control appears as excessive agreeableness, an eagerness to please, or an attempt to anticipate your needs before you express them. Beneath these behaviors lies a simple fear. If I can shape the outcome, I will not have to face loss. Yet relationships are not mechanical systems that respond predictably to effort. They are living dynamics shaped by two independent wills. The more one tries to tighten their grip, the more tension arises. This creates a subtle paradox. The attempt to prevent distance can unintentionally create it. The controlled environment begins to feel constrained, and authenticity becomes difficult. The person may not realize that their effort to secure love is rooted in anxiety rather than trust. As long as control dominates, peace remains fragile, dependent on constant reassurance and adjustment. Opposite to control stands surrender, a concept that is often misunderstood. Surrender does not mean indifference or passivity. It means recognizing that one cannot dictate another's feelings or choices. This realization can feel unsettling because it removes the illusion of certainty. To surrender is to accept that connection involves risk. When someone feels they are losing you, the movement toward surrender requires courage. It asks them to acknowledge their fear without trying to overpower it through manipulation or strategy. Instead of tightening their hold, they loosen it. Instead of rehearsing perfect responses, they speak honestly. This shift may appear subtle from the outside, yet internally it represents a profound change. The unexpected action that emerges at this stage might be a calm conversation rather than a dramatic gesture. It might be the decision to express vulnerability rather than hide behind control. In choosing surrender, the person allows the relationship to exist freely rather than under pressure. They accept that closeness cannot be forced, only invited. Within this acceptance lies a deeper stability. Even if the outcome remains uncertain, the individual gains something essential: self-respect grounded in authenticity rather than fear. When the possibility of losing you becomes real in someone's mind, emotions that have long been restrained can rise with unexpected force. Many people move through daily life with a careful balance, keeping certain feelings contained so that they appear steady and composed. Yet, emotional restraint is not the same as emotional resolution. Feelings that are repeatedly set aside do not disappear. They wait. The threat of separation acts as a trigger, loosening the structure that kept those emotions in check. What follows may seem sudden, but it is often the result of accumulated tension. A person who rarely speaks about their needs may suddenly express them with urgency. Someone who avoids conflict may react strongly to minor misunderstandings. These responses are not created in the moment, they are released in the moment. The mind, under stress, has fewer resources to maintain its usual defenses. As a result, suppressed disappointment, unspoken expectations, and hidden fears move closer to the surface. The individual may feel overwhelmed by the intensity of their own reaction, unsure why it feels so large compared to the immediate situation. This is because the current fear has connected with earlier emotional residues, amplifying the experience. The eruption is not merely about you. It is about everything that was previously left unsaid. Such emotional release can take different forms. For some, it appears as heightened sensitivity, where small shifts in tone or attention feel deeply significant. For others, it may look like frustration or abrupt distance, as though they are protecting themselves from anticipated pain. In either case, the unexpected behavior reflects an internal pressure that has reached its limit. The psyche seeks balance, and when suppression can no longer maintain stability, expression becomes necessary. This moment, though uncomfortable, carries meaning. It reveals where emotional honesty has been postponed. If handled with reflection, the eruption can lead to clearer communication and deeper understanding. The individual may begin to recognize patterns in their reactions, noticing how certain fears consistently influence their behavior. Instead of viewing the intensity as weakness, they can see it as information about unresolved needs. However, without awareness, the same release can reinforce misunderstanding. Words spoken in emotional overload may create further distance, confirming the very fear that triggered them. The critical difference lies in whether the person pauses to examine what has surfaced. When they do, the unexpected emotional display becomes less about chaos and more about revelation, offering insight into the depth of their attachment and the areas within themselves that require attention and care. When someone feels they are losing you, their reaction is not shaped by the present relationship alone. It is influenced by deep patterns of attachment formed long before this connection began. Every person carries an internal blueprint of closeness and separation, shaped by early bonds, formative experiences, and significant losses. These patterns operate quietly, guiding expectations about how love behaves and how stability feels. Some individuals learned that connection is reliable and steady. Others learned that it can disappear without warning. When distance appears even in subtle form, the old blueprint becomes active. The mind does not merely assess the current situation, it compares it to earlier emotional imprints. If past experiences involved inconsistency or sudden absence, the present moment may trigger disproportionate anxiety. The individual may not consciously remember the origin of this response, yet their body and emotions respond as though history is repeating itself. This is why two people can face the same circumstance and react differently. One remains calm, trusting the bond. The other feels a surge of urgency. The reaction is not a sign of immaturity, but of an attachment pattern seeking security. Understanding this allows us to see that the unexpected action which follows is often rooted in something older than the current relationship. It is the past speaking through the present. These attachment patterns do not only influence fear, they also shape the strategies used to cope with it. A person whose early experiences taught them that closeness requires effort may respond by intensifying their attempts to please or impress. Another, who learned that dependence leads to disappointment, may create distance before you can. Both reactions are protective. They are attempts to navigate uncertainty using familiar methods. The difficulty arises when these patterns operate unconsciously. The individual may believe they are responding logically, unaware that their behavior follows an inherited emotional script. The unexpected gesture, whether dramatic reassurance or sudden withdrawal, often reflects this script. It is an effort to restore balance according to what once felt necessary for survival. Yet patterns formed in one context may not serve another. What once protected may now create misunderstanding. The moment of fearing loss therefore becomes significant. It reveals the underlying structure of attachment that guides behavior. If the person reflects on this structure, they gain insight into why certain fears feel so immediate and powerful. In recognizing their pattern, they can begin to respond with greater intention rather than automatic defense. The crisis of feeling they are losing you then becomes not only a challenge to the relationship, but an invitation to reshape the way they relate to closeness itself. When a person feels they are losing you, the experience often carries the weight of crisis. Crisis, however, is not only a moment of danger, it is also a point of decision. The emotional discomfort that arises can no longer be ignored, and what was once stable begins to feel uncertain. In such moments, familiar habits may fail to provide reassurance. The individual senses that something must change, yet they may not immediately know what that change requires. This tension creates an opportunity. The fear of separation forces attention inward. Questions begin to surface. Why does this possibility disturb me so deeply? What does this connection represent in my life? What part of myself feels threatened? These reflections do not always appear calmly. They may emerge through sleepless thoughts or repeated internal dialogue. Still, beneath the discomfort lies a movement toward awareness. The person is compelled to confront aspects of themselves that routine once concealed. Crisis interrupts automatic living. It breaks the illusion that closeness is guaranteed. In doing so, it reveals the depth of one's dependence on external stability. This realization can feel unsettling, yet it holds transformative potential. When the usual assurances weaken, the individual must search for inner grounding. That search, though uncomfortable, can become the beginning of psychological growth. Transformation does not occur simply because fear exists. It unfolds when fear is examined rather than avoided. If the person chooses reflection over impulsive reaction, the crisis becomes instructive. They may begin to distinguish between genuine concern about the relationship and exaggerated anxiety rooted in old experiences. They might recognize patterns in how they respond to uncertainty and consider whether those patterns serve them. This self-observation gradually reduces the intensity of the emotional storm. Instead of reacting solely from urgency, they gain the capacity to pause. The unexpected action that emerges from this stage is different from one driven by panic. It may involve honest communication, acknowledgement of vulnerability, or even acceptance that not all relationships remain unchanged. In facing the fear directly, the individual discovers resilience that was previously untested. They learn that their sense of worth does not depend entirely on the presence of another. Even if the relationship stabilizes, something within them has shifted. They have encountered their own depth and survived the confrontation. In this way, the feeling of losing you becomes more than a threat. It becomes a catalyst that reveals strength, encourages maturity, and opens the possibility of relating from greater self-awareness rather than unconscious dependency. When someone feels they are losing you, the unexpected action that follows often reveals more truth than months of ordinary interaction. In daily life, individuals present a composed version of themselves. They choose words carefully, regulate emotion, and maintain a certain image. Yet under the pressure of possible separation, that image weakens. The fear of absence strips away excess pretense and brings forward what truly matters. The unexpected gesture, whether it is a heartfelt confession, a quiet withdrawal, or a decisive change in behavior, exposes priorities that were previously hidden. It shows what the relationship represents in the inner world of the person. Sometimes the action is an open acknowledgement of feelings long restrained. At other times, it is the courage to allow distance rather than cling in desperation. In either case, the moment carries authenticity. It is less filtered by social habit and more connected to genuine emotion. The person may surprise even themselves, discovering depths of attachment or strength they had not recognized. What emerges is not entirely new. It has been forming beneath the surface. The crisis simply accelerates its appearance. In this sense, the unexpected act is not random, but revealing. It offers a glimpse into the true structure of their character when faced with uncertainty. This revelation can move in different directions. For some, the unexpected act uncovers a capacity for vulnerability. They may speak honestly about fears and hopes, choosing transparency over pride. For others, it uncovers a commitment to self-respect. They may decide not to pursue someone who appears distant, even though doing so feels difficult. Both responses express authenticity because both arise from a clearer awareness of inner values. The key difference between impulsive reaction and meaningful revelation lies in consciousness. If the individual has reflected on their fear, the action becomes intentional rather than chaotic. It reflects integration rather than fragmentation. Through this process, they encounter a fundamental truth. Security cannot be forced from another person. It must be cultivated within. The unexpected behavior then becomes a turning point. It marks the transition from unconscious fear to deliberate choice. Whether the relationship continues or changes form, the person gains insight into their own emotional landscape. They see what they cherish, what they fear, and what they are capable of becoming. In this way, the feeling of losing you does not merely test the bond between two people. It reveals the deeper bond between the individual and their own evolving self. When a person feels they are losing you, one of the most subtle yet powerful forces at work is the confrontation with their own sense of identity. Relationships do not only provide companionship, they quietly shape how individuals understand themselves. Over time, roles are formed. One may become the supportive one, the admired one, the stable one, or the one who feels needed. These roles create a structure through which the person experiences meaning. When distance appears, that structure begins to tremble. The fear is not solely about losing another human being. It is about losing the version of oneself that existed within that connection. If your presence affirmed their value, your absence may seem like a withdrawal of that affirmation. This can generate confusion that goes deeper than emotion. The individual may begin to question who they are without the reflection provided by the relationship. Such questioning is rarely expressed directly. Instead, it appears as restlessness, overthinking, or sudden attempts to redefine the bond. The unexpected behavior that follows often reflects this identity disturbance. They may try to re-establish the familiar dynamic, hoping to recover the sense of self it supported. Or they may attempt to reinvent themselves in order to regain your attention. Beneath these efforts lies a simple uncertainty. Without this connection, who am I becoming? This question, though uncomfortable, signals an important psychological threshold. If the person chooses to examine this threshold rather than escape it, the experience can deepen self-understanding. They may realize that parts of their identity were overly dependent on external validation. This recognition does not diminish the importance of the relationship. Instead, it clarifies where personal grounding was lacking. In facing the possibility of loss, they are invited to strengthen their inner foundation. Rather than seeking constant reassurance, they can begin cultivating qualities that remain stable regardless of another's presence. The unexpected act at this stage may no longer be directed solely toward preserving the relationship. It may involve personal growth, reflection, or a shift in priorities. The crisis then transforms into a reorganization of identity. The person learns that while connection enriches life, it cannot be the sole source of self-definition. This awareness creates a quieter strength. Even if uncertainty remains, it no longer completely destabilizes them. They recognize that their worth is not extinguished by distance. In this realization, the fear of losing you becomes intertwined with the discovery of self. What began as anxiety over separation evolves into a deeper understanding of individuality. The unexpected action that emerges is no longer driven by desperation, but by a clearer sense of who they are, both within and beyond the relationship.